Well, as we go back to our story, it's the second day of the 13th Buy Local Summit and Expo taking place in Sandton, Johannesburg. It's hosted by Proudly South Africa, and the summit has called on government to ease regulatory requirements for small businesses. Additionally, Proudly South Africa has announced the launch of an online shop next month to boost the sale of locally made products. Well, for more on this, let's cross now to my colleague Diabo Sito. A very good afternoon, Diabo. I hope you can hear me this time around. Tell us what you have on offer.
Hi, Nompu. Yes, I can definitely hear you this time around. Well, yesterday was quite busy. It was the first day, and there was a lot of announcements being made, particularly with regards to what you just read about the implementation of that e-commerce platform on online shop. But another thing happened yesterday, in that Proudly SA revealed and announced a new cohort of companies that have decided to pledge their support to increase their localization content in whatever they're doing. It's whether it is getting more suppliers who are locally, or people who will produce things locally. And one of those who have been with Proudly SA and have decided to increase their localization content is SAB. We understand that they will be procuring their barley and their hop. These are the ingredients that are necessary for making beer from South African farmers. But this is not necessarily a new pledge that they are making, but they're increasing the pledge from, I believe, the last time. Marcia Kumiri is the corporate brand director at SAB, and she joins us now dressed up just like you are. Nompu, you girls forgot to give me the memo. Marcia, thank you so much for your time. We've been talking about your role and what you have been doing in increasing localization, and this gives you a perfect picture of what currently the South African farmers and low-scale farmers that you are procuring from, and how the economy is impacting them. What have you noticed so far? What can you tell us about what you've seen about the state of the agricultural sector with whom you work with?
So thank you so much for having me, and yes, got the dress code memo. So I think at the core, beer is natural. So like you said, all of our ingredients are procured through agriculture. So we're really entrenched in the agricultural system. And as you know, agriculture is dependent on the weather, it's dependent on the seasons, and also how well the crop does. And so we really support our local farmers. We partnered with FarmSol. There's farmers we support with looking at how well we can increase the yield that we have from our harvest. And we have a research center in Caledon, which is actually the biggest in Southern Africa, and we work there with researchers, with universities, to really get the best out of our crop, and so that our farmers can thrive, because can be a tough environment, especially depending on weather, disasters, etc. So it's really working closely with them to ensure that they also grow from small scale and graduate into large scale farmers.
I want to go back to the issue of weather patterns. Climate resilience and climate change have become a good factor, or have become a factor in a lot of in the agricultural sector, and just general in business, and just the economy and countries. How are you preparing these businesses to be able to withstand severe weather patterns that we currently see? We're looking at what's been happening in KZN, for instance.
So it's a lot of collaboration and really working with scientists and looking at how do we, so for example, one of the things we do at the Caledon Research Center, so they pre-test the barley. So before the farmers even put it into the field, they're really looking at where's the best place to grow barley. In other places of the country, what is the soil composition, what are the general weather patterns. And like you said, sometimes what you haven't planned for is what happens. So it's really managing that and trying to figure out how best to look at some of their yields, and where there's challenges sometimes where farmers have lost yield, we really look at how do we continue to partner with them to ensure that the next yield, that they don't lose themselves as a supplier of SAB.
I know that you are one of the sponsors here of Proudly SA, and the board chairperson yesterday made a plea that government should please ease regulatory requirements for small businesses. From your point of view, and those that are under SAB, I beg your pardon, loyalty, mentorship, how do you find this affecting them? And do you agree that the regulatory requirements should be eased?
So I know that it's obviously different for different industries. We work very closely with government. We actually took the Minister of Agriculture to showcase the work that we do, as well as showcase what we do with FarmSaw.
Masha, I believe that we have the Premier currently on standby. Nompu, with that, let me hand over back to you. We'll continue with this conversation right afterwards.
All right. Thank you very much, Diabo, for that.